Okay, so we're diving straight in to this Africa Declaration on Artificial Intelligence.
Sounds good.
It's pretty recent, right? This just came out of the Global AI Summit in Kigali, Rwanda, like just a few days ago, April 4th, 2025.
Yeah, pretty much hot off the presses. And you know what's really interesting is this wasn't just like a small group getting together. This was leaders from all across Africa coming together to set out, a unified vision.
So a pretty big deal then.
Huge, yeah.
So for everyone listening, we're going to break down what's in this declaration, what commitments African nations are making when it comes to developing and using AI.
Hmm.
And to do that, I guess the best place to start is with the guiding principles.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that really jumps out is the focus on sovereignty, inclusivity, and diversity in African AI.
Right, because I imagine they don't want to just become dependent on, you know, technology or systems built somewhere else.
Exactly. It's about making sure that AI in Africa benefits all communities, reflects African values, fits their context.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, pushing AI forward. There's a lot of emphasis on safeguards too, right? Making sure it's ethical, transparent, explainable, all that.
Totally. Yeah, they're really prioritizing human dignity rights and environmental sustainability, which is great to see.
And just for our understanding, what does explainability actually mean when it comes to AI?
Good question. So basically, it means being able to understand why an AI makes the decisions it makes. Why does it predict this or that? And that's super important for building trust and, making sure we can hold these systems accountable.
Got it. And to actually achieve all of this, I mean, it sounds like a massive undertaking.
Oh, it is.
The declaration talks about the need for collaboration, right? Like across regions globally and between governments and private companies.
Absolutely. That's the only way they're going to be able to build, the AI capabilities and infrastructure that Africa needs for sustainable and inclusive growth.
So those are the principles. Let's move on to the objectives. What are they actually hoping to achieve with all this?
So one of the key objectives is to use AI to drive innovation and make African economies and societies more competitive. So really seeing tangible benefits.
And from what I read, they're not just aiming to catch up. They want to become a global leader in this whole ethical and trustworthy AI thing.
Yeah, it's ambitious, but they're committed to a really comprehensive approach.
Yeah.
Making sure everything from design to development to how it's used and governed is done sustainably and responsibly.
Okay, so let's dig into some specifics. The declaration talks about talent development, right?
Yeah, that's a huge focus. They want to create this pipeline of people who can work in AI.
Yeah.
So things like continent-wide education initiatives, updating university programs, and increasing research opportunities, maybe even partnering with institutions in other parts of the world.
And making sure ordinary people understand AI too,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That's why they're putting so much emphasis on raising awareness and digital literacy among citizens. And then there's also this idea of creating an African AI scientific panel, which would include experts from the diaspora to make sure the research being done is actually relevant to the African context.
Now, what about data? I mean, you need a ton of data for AI.
Definitely. So they're calling for a framework for open data sets and AI models specifically for key sectors like healthcare and agriculture.
So making it easier to access and use that data.
Yeah, and there's a big emphasis on data governance too, making sure everything's secure, private, and in line with the AU data policy framework. They also want to promote data practices that protect consumers' intellectual property rights and make sure things are diverse and inclusive.
Right, because data bias is a huge problem.
Exactly. So they're trying to address that head on.
This all sounds very expensive, though.
It is. And that's why they're establishing a $60 billion Africa AI fund.
Wow, $60 billion. That's serious money.
It is. It shows how committed they are to building a safe, inclusive, and competitive AI economy in Africa. And that funding will go towards, foundational stuff, but also more catalytic investments to really get things moving.
Okay, so who's going to be in charge of all this? How are they going to make sure everything stays on track?
Well, the declaration supports individual countries developing their own national AI policies as long as they're innovative, responsible, and aligned with the AU's overall strategy.
So kind of a decentralized approach, but within a framework.
Yeah. And they also want to create this continent-wide platform for sharing knowledge and best practices when it comes to governing AI. And another big thing is promoting cooperation between governments on things like cross-border data flows.
Which could be tricky.
It can be, yeah, but that's why they're putting so much emphasis on it. And then there's the Africa AI Council, which will be led by Smart Africa and the AU. So that'll be a really important body for providing high-level leadership and making sure everyone's working together.
So big picture, it sounds like this declaration is basically saying that Africa is committed to shaping its own AI future, in a way that benefits the whole continent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about progress, but responsible progress. progress that's inclusive and really puts Africa in the driver's seat.
So to recap for our listeners, the key takeaways here are African sovereignty, ethical AI, investing in talent and data, a huge financial commitment, and collaborative governance.
Exactly. It's a really exciting time for AI in Africa, and it'll be fascinating to see what innovations and solutions come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have such a diverse range of perspectives and priorities across the continent. Who knows what they might come up with? It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, until next time, keep exploring
Keep learning.
and keep diving deep.